Okay, welcome. We are live here at Dynasty Saturday Night 5. We are a Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast on the Going for Two Live network. Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review if you're listening to the audio feed. And if you're watching us here on YouTube or other video platforms, do those other things that feed the algorithm monster, like subscribe, comment, and notifications, and all that jazz. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the impact of NFL draft and rookies on NFL backfields. But before we do that, let's say hi to my co-host, Josh Walker. Josh, how you doing?
Doing great. It's good to be back after missing a week. Glad we had the guests to keep it rolling. But 80% of my rookie drafts are done, and that's a pretty good feeling. I can kind of look at my team now and really know what I've got heading into the season, see what moves I need to make, and all that. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, it is. It's fun. And for whatever reason this year, the universe has smiled upon me, and my rookie draft seemed to be spread out a little bit. So there's only a few going on at once. I don't know that I have 80% done, but I don't have that overload of like a million pings and everything all at once like I do most years. So that's good. For those of you who are new or who don't remember, we do lists of 5 here on Dynasty Saturday Night 5 as a way to talk about the topic. Excuse me. We're going to talk about the topic of NFL backfields. We had this 2024 running back class, which a lot of people were, throwing shade at, and some of them landed in some interesting spots. And we have some interesting conversations to have about these NFL backfields. Read some tea leaves here and there as best we can in May, and see what we should do as dynasty managers. So, Josh, before we pay the bills and get into the main part of the show, do you have any particular overall strategy with running backs in Dynasty, or any particular approach to like murky backfields?
Yeah, really the only way I'm investing in running backs is if it's, through the rookie draft and getting rookies, or trying to get veterans that people are just trying to get rid of. But my overall strategy, especially in startups, is I'm not really spending the capital to get one of the top, 5 running backs anymore. I don't want to spend my first, second, or third round pick on a running back as much anymore. Now, if I'm sitting at the end of the second and I have a quarterback and Bijan falls, I might take him or Brees or something. But I'm usually looking to get a few wide receivers and quarterbacks in a super flex startup. So I'm really just taking the values of the veterans. Like before the trade, Joe Mixon, you could get him late, Aaron Jones, even David Montgomery, some of these other guys who were just kind of looked over in Dynasty. I'm just getting them like rounds 10, 11, 12. Alvin Kamara's one. That's just kind of how I've been going about it. That's obviously in a win now. If I'm not trying to win now, I'm not investing in running backs outside of a rookie draft. Like in a startup, I'll probably just take some super late just to fill the spot. But I don't think it makes sense to, go after some of these guys unless maybe Bijan or some of these really, really young guys.
Yeah, I generally have, same approach. We're kind of in this new paradigm where, it's the running backs don't matter, quote unquote. I know it's a lot more complex than that, but just, as a shorthand, the whole zero RB sort of meta that we're in these days. And, there are certainly pluses and minuses, but when you combine the way that the NFL has changed, with running backs, with the deployment and specialization and the draft capital they're spending and the injury at the position, it all makes sense. And we're kind of all approaching it that way through the rookie draft, late in startups, pick up the value that comes to you outside of, the top few. When it comes to these murky backfields, that's where I think it gets fascinating, interesting. So a while back, JJ Zacharyson, I think, coined the term ambiguous backfields. And the way he was using it was more about like 2 running backs on the same team who are both drafted in the middle rounds. And what the market is telling us is that they can't, it's close, but they prefer one over the other, but there's no strong convictions. And I encourage people to go and read and listen to the episodes that he's done on that and the subsequent research about ambiguous RB1s, et cetera, et cetera. I think people use the term now a little bit differently, as just like, we don't know what's going to happen with these backfields. It's not rooted in the technical part of ADP or where they're drafted. And that's kind of what we're looking at tonight. And that's these rookies came in, they complicated these backfields. What do we now do as dynasty managers? But before we get into that, let's pay some bills. Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. They have it all. Industry leader in best ball. They also, of course, have pick'ems, DFS, and private leagues, big tournaments. BBM5 is up now. Eliminator's up now. We've got some puppies and chihuahuas, the Goldens, if you got a lot of money. If there's a dog to name a tournament after, they will. They'll be drafting, of course, all throughout the summer. And they're not just football. They have every major sport, baseball, hockey, basketball, golf, tennis, racing, all sorts of stuff there on Underdog. If you go to underdog.com or the Underdog app and use the promo code GF2, and you are a new account, you will get a deposit match on your first deposit. We used to be doing it was up to $100 on your first deposit. I've heard on some other shows they changed it to like a 50% up to $250. I'm not sure if our promo code is the old one or the new one, but anyway, you can get some money if you go to underdog.com or the Underdog app and put in promo code GF2. There will be some sort of deposit match for you that's coming out of Josh Norris's pocket, because let's face it, he's rich from being on Underdog. All right, so let's start off with these backfields. Honestly, we could do like 5 weeks in a row with somewhat ambiguous backfields, at least the way that we're defining it here as more as murky than as ADP based ambiguous. So let's fire this up here, share some screen for those of you listening on the audio. We've got some slides up here just with each backfield and their age, their contract, their ADP, and that sort of thing. So let's start off with Green Bay Packers, right? They signed Josh Jacobs in the offseason to a free agent contract. There's some funny money in there. It's a 4-year deal that they can get out of after one. They had A.J. Dillon, who's a UFA, after this season, and then drafted Marshawn Lloyd, the rookie, in the 3rd round, I believe. Yeah, 3rd round. All right. So Jacobs is Dynasty RB 11, according to our rankings on the website, 13 at Keep Trade Cut, and 11 at Fantasy Calc, and according to Dynasty Data Lab, which I encourage people to go to for ADP and stuff like that, is lots of other things on there, like trade database and things, kind of like Fantasy Calc and stuff. He's going at the 606 in startups, still running back 12, so he's still in the top 12. So the community is still looking at Jacobs more or less as a low-end RB1 in Dynasty. Lloyd's rookie draft ADP is around 302, the 5th running back off the board. Seems to be consistently in the 30s as far as rankings go across the platforms. Dillon in the 50s and 60s across the platforms, and going as the 51st running back off the board in startups at 1803. There are, of course, others on the roster: Emmanuel Wilson, Ellis Merriweather, and Javon Howard, I believe. Javonte Howard, I forget. Javion, I believe. I forget. Anyway, he ain't going to make it. That's a little Office Space reference for you. Anyway, so here we go. So that's kind of how the backfield looks. How are you approaching this backfield? Any player that you like more than the other? Any guy that you think is undervalued or overvalued? What are your thoughts overall on the Green Bay Packers backfield?
I think Lloyd's being a little bit undervalued given the contract situations after 2024. I think I was going to mention earlier with this class of running backs, I think, after this next year, after the rookie season, it might not look that good, but some of these situations that we'll talk about open up. And I think after 3 or 4 years, we could look back at this class and think, okay, this was actually a pretty good running back class. And Lloyd was one of my favorite targets in the 2nd round, just because after this year, they could keep Jacobs, they could not, but I think it's his backfield to lose moving forward. And even this year, I think he's going to get some run because I think he's better than A.J. Dillon. We've seen what he did. He was very unimpressive last year. Jacobs is a workhorse back. He's one of the true 3-down backs, and I think he's going to get a heavy workload. But at the same time, I don't think they're just going to completely run him into the dirt. So I think Marshawn Lloyd can actually return pretty good value this year. And I think he's going to take over the role A.J. Dillon did fill in. And Dillon's going to be third in the pecking order. But yeah, I see it being like a 70-30 split with Jacobs getting most of 70 and then Lloyd getting maybe 20% of that. And it could get more if he plays better. And Jacobs, he's 26, but he's had a lot of mileage. He's got a lot of carries in his career, so we don't really know how he'll hold up. But yeah, I have Jacobs number 8 overall, so he's still a top 10 running back for me.
Yeah, I was struggling with Jacobs because a while back I was kind of saying, like, not that I'm saying he didn't put in full effort, because when you don't put in full effort, and you get into 20 car crashes a game, that can be a little dangerous, right? But it felt like he was kind of playing out the string in a situation that he didn't like, and just sort of trying not to get too injured doing it, so that he could then have freedom. And then so I was kind of baking in some sort of bounce back for him. Certainly not to his 2022 levels, but but I'm starting to think, I don't want to do like hot take city, but Matt LaFleur said Marshawn Lloyd reminds him of Aaron Jones, right? What if soon into the season, Jacobs is playing more of a Dillon role, Marshawn Lloyd is more of the Aaron Jones role, and he's the guy that you're going to want. Friend of the show, Tom Tipple, has been taking a stand on taking guys like Lloyd even as early as, I think, like the mid-second, above some of the receivers who have red flags like A.D. Mitchell and Keon Coleman and Xavier Legette and those guys. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'm certainly happy with the late second. And this year I maybe get some explosive plays and some contingent upside. He's one Josh Jacobs ankle away, and maybe my consolation prize is I've got the first lead back in a good offense in 2025.
Yep.
So I'm starting to get a little bit more bearish on Jacobs and starting to get a little bit more interested in Lloyd. What do you think about that?
I mean, it could happen. I just think Josh Jacobs has been, a top 5, top 10 back when he's playing healthy and, giving it his all. So I think that's more likely, but that definitely is an outcome, given, like I said, the mileage. And if Lloyd comes out and it's just explosive, I don't think they're going to keep him off the field just because they have Jacobs. But I do think they have Jacobs for this year just to, give him some work too and let Marshawn Lloyd learn a little bit.
Yeah, we should point out as much as we're into Lloyd, the player. He does have flaws with vision and ball security, and those are things that can create some real boneheaded plays that can piss off coaches. So that's within his range of outcomes as well. All right, so let's go to the next backfield, and that's the New York Giants, right? So. Devin Singletary, he's 27 in September. The team has an out in the contract after 2025. Seems to be floating around in the late 30s and 40s as far as rankings go. Startup 14th round, early 38th running back off the board. Eric Gray, rookie last year, will be 25 in November on his rookie deal. Very low rankings in the 80s, 90s, 100s, barely on the radar as far as startups go. Gary Brightwell is apparently only 25. I don't know how that works. He's a UFA after this year, if he's even on the team. He's ranked even lower than Eric Gray. Tyrone Tracy is the darling of the rookie draft season for many. He too will be 25 in November on his rookie deal. And there seems to be some debate around him, and he's probably the most interesting guy to talk about here. Our composite rankings have him at 60, KTC at 84, Fantasy Calc at 58. I put little asterisks on the Fantasy Calc ones because the rookies seem to be really high in there, and that's based because they aggregate trades. So I'm wondering if the way that they produce ranks by aggregating trades is affecting the fact that they're higher on rookies than the other platforms are. But anyway, his ADP is the 408 in rookie drafts. I don't know. That seems to me like if you're in like leagues that are less plugged into the bubble of Twitter and podcasts and things like that. Because you and I have been in some drafts where he's going as early as the mid third already, and that would be RB13 off the board in rookie draft. So I'm going to kick off the Giants. I went into this saying the Giants need to draft a running back. You can't have Devin Singletary as your 1A. We could totally see a situation where, he was last year's, we can squeeze a good season out of a 26, 27-year-old running back who has good football IQ, and that puts a lot of miles on him, and next year he's not much. And I think he's going to run into that. He has knowledge of the system. He has a relationship with Daboll from Buffalo. I get that. I get that he's savvy and agile and has good footwork, which makes up for size and speed. I get that he can catch an occasional pass or two, but I just don't think the offensive line or quarterback play is dynamic enough to get the most out of Singletary. And I don't want to go – you're getting a little hum in the mic again. I don't want to go into did you hear me?
No.
I don't want to go into the season with Singletary as my lead back if I'm the Giants. And so they did draft Tracy, right? And fourth round, he's kind of getting this steam and this helium. There's very smart people who I respect who love him and are in on him. And I get it. I get, right? Like explosive, good size, kind of runs like David Johnson did when he first got into the league. Can break tackles, former wide receiver, so he can catch passes. And all he has to do is, compete with, the likes of Devin Singletary and Eric Gray. I get that. But he's an older prospect. He switched from wide receiver to running back, which kind of combines with his age there. One of the reasons he came out late is because of the transfers and that switch. But because of that switch, he kind of still runs upright like a wide receiver. I don't really see him worth the helium and the steam that he's getting into the mid-third now. Again, it's a mid-third, so you might as well, throw it at a Tyrone Tracy. Because, and I get the argument, the pushback of who else are you taking there? He's just as good or better than some of the wide receivers you're taking a swing on or something. I get it. I get it. But there's something that scares me a little bit about people being a little too in on Tyrone Tracy. Can you talk me in or out of my fear of Tyrone Tracy?
No, I can't. The only way I got him was off of waiver wires in 2 leagues. Besides that, I wasn't really in at the price. There's other running backs there that I like Bucky, Vidal, Estime even. Shipley. I'd rather take those guys over Tracy. I could see this, like, Singletary's that type of guy. Like, he doesn't exceed in anything, but he does everything well, and he doesn't screw up. And a lot of times that's all coaches want. And I kind of think the same says for Eric Gray. We haven't seen a ton of him, but it wouldn't be surprised if Tracy was 3rd or 4th in the pecking order on this team. This just seems like the offense that would even give Gary Brightwell more, like, maybe goal line touches than Tracy, which could be frustrating. I'm completely avoiding this backfield unless I have Singletary already on a team. Even if that, I might try and move him as soon as he has a good game or two, because this offense just feels kind of ugly to me.
Yeah, Singletary to me is kind of a sell. I think him and Zach Moss are going to disappoint people this year. I could be wrong. Jamie comments here in the chat about Tracy being a special teams running back. It's true. He returns kicks. And when you can return kicks, you make a roster. When you can return kicks, you're active on game day. Those are good things for getting in the game, especially if somebody tweaks an ankle or something like that, right? But I think that also speaks to the idea that without that injury, I just see him as I don't want to say gadgety, but like a schemed touches kind of guy because of the former wide receiver mold and the way that he runs and his pass catching. Now, again, he's got contingent upside on a Singletary ankle, just like Marshawn Lloyd has contingent upside on a Josh Jacobs ankle, right? But like Tracy is A, to me, not as good as Lloyd, and B, entering a worse offense with that contingency upside. And I don't think that difference is reflected enough in rookie drafts.
No, I'm with you. It just seems like I don't know what it is. Sometimes there's players like I was like this with Elijah Moore, and a lot of people are where people just get kind of stuck to, and they could oftentimes overlook some of like the warts that are on the player just because they just grow a liking to them. And I think that's kind of what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean,
To be
I
honest.
have like 1 or 2 shares at the moment, and like, so I'm not gonna have 0. Like, I get it, I
Mhm.
like him, but I think his price has already gone up a little too much.
Yeah, anyone in this backfield you can get something for, I'd probably go ahead and take it. You know, you could probably hold on to Tracy, see what you can get out of him, but as far as a player goes, but I'd sell the other ones, honestly.
Well, I will say this: my Jay Sean Corbin dreams are no longer alive. I liked him. I thought he could be something. Gosh darn it! But that's what I do. I fall in love with sleepers. All right, the Denver Broncos. I want to talk about this one because I have a hot takey, maybe not just to be hot takey, but I think not many people would agree with it. But I want you to go first because your boy is in here. We've got Javonte, 24 years old. He's a free agent after this year. Surfing there in the 20s as far as rankings go, going at the 805 in startups. Jaleel McLaughlin, 23, restricted free agent after 25. In the 60s, 70s, pretty much as far as rankings go, 17th round in startups. Samaje Perine, 28, maybe a cut candidate in the 70s and 90s as far as rankings go, way down in the 25th in startups. People seem to be out on him. And then there's the 2 rookies, your boy Estime, who won't turn 21 until September, which I found interesting. He's on his rookie deal, being ranked in the 40s, going in the early 4th as far as ADP goes when rookie drafts, 10th running back off the board. Undrafted free agent Blake Watson. He'll be 25 in October, so older for a prospect. Not really on people's radars as much as far as rankings and ADP go. He's usually a guy you can get in post rookie draft waivers. And then, of course, there's little old Tyler Beatty still hanging around there. I have a lot of thoughts on Denver. Why don't you kick us off though? Because that's where your boy landed.
Yeah, so I'd be honestly shocked if Perine makes the team after all is said and done, especially after they went out and acquired 2 running backs. Whether through the draft or signing him right after. So I don't expect Perine to make the team. He didn't look that impressive last year, and he kind of his touches were very inconsistent. Now, as far as moving forward, though, I don't really see them re-signing Javonte Williams given his injuries. Sean Payton didn't draft him. He did draft Estime and Watson. So I think after this year, as long as Estime shows that he's worthy of the pick, I think it could be his job in 2025. I was listening to Matt Waldman on the Fantasy Football Today. He thinks Blake Watson can do what McLaughlin can do, but even better. So he said he wouldn't be surprised if he moves into that role. And even this year, not so much even next year. But I think moving forward after this year, I could see it being, Estime, Watson, and McLaughlin. And maybe if they sign somebody else or draft a rookie. But yeah, I think Williams is out after this year, given that Peyton's a coach and drafted Estime, who has a lot of the same characteristics that Javonte Williams does.
Yeah, I'm on board with I'm sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if Perine doesn't get cut, it's going to get messy. And so I'm hoping Perine gets cut.
Yeah, I would bet on that too. And basically I'm on board with everything you said there. I'm a little higher on Javonte than consensus for this 1 year. Returning from that injury, sort of second year back from the ACL. Got Bo Nix, who likes to throw short passes. Not much else as far as like pass catchers and people to lean on. So I think there will be volume there, and volume is king in fantasy football. However, I agree that he's likely gone after this year. The thing is with with this team, people are so down on the vibes. They don't like Peyton. There was a messy year with Russ. The offense is ugly. They're in like a semi rebuild mode with Peyton trying to like reshape the team in his image and that kind of thing. And I think these assets are being overlooked because of that. And our job, I think, is to think about what's this going to look like in August. Who's going to go up and down in value between now and then also what's this going to look like next year. And my sort of, what I said was a mildly hot take is kind of in line with what you're saying. TLDR in 2025, and Kyle, you should be listening to this one. In 2025, Audric Estime and Blake Watson will be the Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara that Sean Payton likes to use in his offense. I'm not saying either is as good as those guys. I'm talking about roles and skill sets and what Peyton likes to do in the offense, right? People are down on this Estime landing spot, and I'm like, why? Like he's going to a team where Javonte Williams is probably gone next year. He at least has contingency upside on Williams, especially if P. Ryan gets cut. We've seen the entire draft process. People talk about how he's smart and quick, even if he doesn't have long speed. Great size, good age. Like, I don't get it. Like, I think Estime's a value in rookie draft still. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I like Ray Davis. I like, that like Vidal is like a my guy of mine. I'm mixing those guys in. But I think people are really sleeping on the Estime thing with the landing spot. And I would not be surprised. Don't get me, and I like McLaughlin too. But I think next year it's Estime and Blake Watson as Ingram and Kamara, and I would say operate accordingly, however that looks in your leagues, whether it's grabbing them now or in August or in the season, whatever works for you and your team. I think that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I agree. And Sean Payton kind of has his guys that he drafts, and he kind of sticks with them. So even if Estime comes out and performs really well this year, I think that's going to earn him more touches and could make it a little uglier for Javonte Williams if he still just looks a little lackluster or just decent, not explosive like we saw before his injury.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I think I'm going to go try to get a little more Estime now. Mix him in a little bit more.
Yeah.
Gotta check
Also on this offense is everyone's talking about how bad it's going to be. I don't think it'll be that bad. I think Nix can move the ball. He'll complete a lot of passes because he throws short passes. He's got a college wide receiver he's worked with already. He got Cortland Sutton. Like, I think this offense will be fine. I don't think it's going to be great, but I think it will be better than what people think for fantasy.
Agreed. All right. We are really moving through these quickly. Maybe we should do slides more. We don't linger for 90 minutes.
I'm not sitting there looking through my notes, scrolling up.
All right, so let's talk about the Ravens, right? So people might not think this is a murky backfield, but like, I think personally, there's a story to tell about Henry maybe not being as awesome as people are thinking this year. And then, of course, behind Henry, there's a much more interesting story. So they've got Derrick Henry. He's 30. There's an out in his contract after this year. Ranked in the late teens and 20s, going in the 9th round in startups. Keaton Mitchell, 22 years old. I believe he was a UDFA last year. Got hurt with the ACL, I think mid to late season, floating in the 40s and 50s in rankings. People still in on him, though. 15th round, sort of zero RB grab there in the Dynasty startup streets. Justice Hill, still hanging around. He'll be 27 in November and out in his contract after this year. Really low ranked in the 70s, 90s, not really registering ADP. And then there is intriguing rookie Rasheen Ali. He's 23 on his rookie deal. Seems to be going under the radar. 69 on Fantasy Calc, nice, and 71 on KTC and in our composite rankings. I am probably above consensus on Ali from what I can tell. You want to kick us off with the Ravens?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say after this year. Obviously, they won't have Derrick Henry, and that's where it could get even murkier. but I think they're going to hand the ball off to Derrick Henry a lot this year. Obviously, if Keaton Mitchell didn't have an ACL tear, I would think that he'd be like the Tajay Spears to Henry that they had in Tennessee. But I think he's going to come back, not 100% to start the year, but later on in the year he is. But I think Keaton Mitchell's a pretty good dynasty buy. He's pretty cheap right now, and I think after this year, I don't think he's a lead back in an offense just given his size, but I think he'll get a lot more touches because after Henry's gone, we don't really know. Justice Hill's there. Justice Hill could be annoying for fantasy this year. I could see when you want, especially if you got Ali. You drafted him, you have him in there hoping you get touches, and then they just bring Justice Hill in when Henry's not on the field because he's a veteran, knows what he's doing, and he looked good at times last year. Yeah, it's murkier than I thought. I said before the show, I wish I drafted more Rasheen Ali or picked him up in more leagues because I think after this year, it's an open field, and if he impresses this year, he could be at least a 1A or out of a 1A, 1B type situation. But this year, I think it's Henry's backfield, and Justice Hill is going to be pretty prominent, and Keaton Mitchell later on in the season, just due to his speed and explosiveness.
Yeah, I'm still unsure on a couple things. I mean, obviously Henry, I think, is an upgrade over an injured Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Certainly, he goes to we think a better offensive line, although they did lose a piece or two there. And you get 1 year out of him. He's probably going to get double-digit touchdowns. Okay, I get that, and if I'm a win now team, okay, sure, I get that. Ali is the guy I want. Excuse me. I think he's going to start the year in Keaton Mitchell's role, and Keaton Mitchell might be Wally pipped and not get it by the time he's back. Ali tore his biceps, I think, either at or right around the combine, and if he did not do that, there was talk of him being like a top 8 to 10 back in this class. There are certainly flaws, and he went to Marshall, right? Like, it's not the type of program, and that's reflected in his round 5 draft capital. But if there's a guy at cost I want on this team, it's going to be Rasheen Ali, and I think at worst he's the guy that's going to get the buzz over the offseason, because Keaton Mitchell is going to be like not practicing as much and therefore be worth more in August. So if I'm looking for an asset that's going to increase in value, it's probably Ali. Everybody kind of already knows the deal with Henry. So yeah, I want Rasheen Ali. I've picked him up on post-draft waivers, with a few rookie drafts, have mixed in a healthy amount of shares. Oh shoot, I got 5 shares already. All right, maybe I should stop. But yeah, that's how I'm seeing it. With the Ravens. Yeah.
No, I could see it, especially. I mean, they don't really have anything committed to Keaton Mitchell. They didn't even draft him, and they did spend a draft pick on Ali. So I could definitely see that happening. I just hope it doesn't, because right after Keaton Mitchell got hurt, I went and acquired him for some late thirds, early fourths from like 2025 because people just didn't want him. So I'm hoping he bounces back. But you're right. I didn't really get to see much from Ali, I guess, because of the torn bicep. And I watched some of his film, and he's pretty athletic. I think his vertical is pretty insane. I've seen. The one note I did have, he has ball security issues, and as a rookie, that's one thing that can really put you down in the pecking order. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Yeah, I'm rooting for Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah, same. I do like Mitchell a lot, and I picked up a few shares for sure last year. I just I don't know. I kind of with running backs being so disposable for these NFL teams, I think we're just looking at it and where they're like, oh, Keaton, oh, you're hurt? Okay, we'll just get Rasheen Ali. And then he gets, kind of forgotten, which...
No, for sure.
Yeah. All righty. Let's go then to our last backfield for the night, and that is the high testosterone Jim Harbaugh Los Angeles Chargers. We know the deal. We've got Dobbins, who's 26 in December. obviously a free agent. I believe after this year, I believe that his guaranteed money is only $50,000. I'm not positive, but like I think that might be the case. Ranked in the 40s and 50s, I think people are kind of hedging it, saying if he can be healthy, he'll probably be okay, but he will be slowed by the Achilles thing. So we're not going to like put him up into the 20s, but we don't like hate him. There's still name value. So we're not dropping him down to like the 60s. He's eerily aligned in rankings with Gus Edwards, who's 29, also a free agent after this year. And also in the 40s and 50s, going 2 rounds ahead of Dobbins in startups right now. And then, of course, there's Isaiah Spiller, a holdover, who's 23 in August and is essentially an afterthought in all rankings and in Dynasty players' hearts. Elijah Dotson, who I think has a little bit of, spice, a little bit of pass-catching skills, but not really on people's radars and certainly not taken by this regime, nor has he done anything to really stand out. Believe Joshua Kelly remains unsigned. And of course, they have Buffalo standout, University of Buffalo standout, Jarrett Patterson, who broke all sorts of records in, is that the MAC or D2 or something? I don't know. Anywho, but of course, there's the main event, America's sleeper, Kamani Vidal, who will be 23 in August, is being ranked in the 40s and 50s. So right kind of in line there with Dobbins and Edwards. His ADP is 311 now, up from the early 4th in rookie drafts as RB8 off the board. And I mean, you and I are in drafts where he's going above ADP. Like the cat is well out of the bag on Vidal. And so I guess I'll start on this one because Vidal was like, well, he's my guy for both of us. But obviously, 6th-round capital, Troy, right? He goes to Troy, so not exactly a powerhouse program. So, yes, I think there is a case to be made that he's getting too much steam, right? And now the price is too high. But again, it's like that Tyrone Tracy argument, like, okay, well, the price is too high, but if the price is a mid-third and who you picking anyway, then maybe the price is fine. The question for me is what's this going to look like in August and September, right? Is Vidal going to increase in value over the summer because we keep getting hype and buzz and videos and coach speak? Or is it going to go the opposite direction? Now, from a best ball standpoint, Pat Kerrane kind of said, which I think is a good nugget. He was saying, this may have gotten out of control, but if it hasn't gotten out of control, right, then it's got a lot more to go. So you might as well still buy now because it's going to keep going up, 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 and up. And I think as dynasty managers, we have to think about it that way when we think about what's Kamani Vidal going to be worth in August or, a couple weeks into the season. He's definitely got a shot. He really only has to contend with Dobbins if he can stay on the field, and Edwards, who's a short yardage goal line bruiser, who's 29 years old. Yeah, it was he won the landing spot lotto, and he's a very good player and is athletic and productive as a lot of the bigger school guys, and he's a guy I'm willing to place bets on. The question again, and I'll pass it to you because I'm getting repetitive, is what price is too high as he climbs? Are you going to say, well, you know what? Might as well throw a mid-third at a guy who at worst is contingency upside behind Edwards and Dobbins, both old slash injured, when the other guys going in the mid-third, are, Ray Davis and, Javon Baker and, maybe a tight end and, that sort of thing, right? So how high is too high for Vidal?
A lot of that when I drafted Vidal, depending on who was there, like you said, Javon Baker, Jermaine Burton, some of these receivers that fell to the third, even some like Troy Franklin falling to the third. If there were guys like that, I'd draft them. But if those guys are gone and you're looking at running back, then yeah, I would take a shot. So I guess middle to late third would be fine. I prefer later because some of those receivers I was talking about can be there in the middle of the third, and I'd rather take a shot on them, just given total upside. But I think Vidal seasons, I think it's going to depend on Dobbins and how healthy he looks. There's been tapes even a few months ago of him working out on his own. He looks quick, but that's also him on a field, no pads, not other people around your feet. And I think one thing that goes into this, and Saquon Barkley talked about this, is like, without really thinking about it, you're going to nurse that. Like, you're not going to make the same cuts. You're not going to play the same you did before the injury because it's in the back of your mind, even if you're not actively thinking about it. So I think it's all going to depend on how he does. We know what Gus Edwards is. We know what he's going to provide. And I think he's going to be the, first, second down guy a lot of the times. But if Dobbins doesn't look good or if he gets re-injured, which happens a lot, I think Vidal, but it's, rocket ship emoji up for Vidal. I think that'd be great value where you get him. And I think he'll be pretty tough to acquire after that. So I'd go and try and do it now just in case. Because if Dobbins doesn't look like the old Dobbins, Vidal could easily step in there and be that next guy.
If a guy has this clear or this plausible a path on a team that wants to run this much and has that much talent, like, like a mid to late third is, I'll pay that to find out,
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for our 5 backfields. Next week, we may do another 5. I think there's a lot to talk about with the Rams, with Kyren and Corum. I think there's a lot to talk about with Miami. San Francisco is interesting, with Garendo being someone who's a darling for some people. I'm a little less of a believer there. Buffalo, where I think Ray Davis has a path, to some of the dirty, messy touches that they don't want to give to James Cook. There's a lot going on in New York with the Jets, and honestly, like, a whole bunch of other teams that we could do. So we might do a couple weeks of this, and we'll see how things go. But so just to kind of recap things, I think when it comes to the Packers, I think both of us are like, yeah, okay, Jacobs if I'm contending. But Lloyd, one way or the other, is probably the guy we want at cost. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and actually, I'm only doing like 1 or 2 rebuilds out of all my leagues, and one of them I drafted Jonathan Brooks and Lloyd, and they're going to sit on my taxi squad for this entire year. So I think as long as you're not contending, Lloyd should be easily the best target on that team, even if he's not ranked as high.
I think with the Giants, we're not enthused about the team. We recognize Singletary can get some volume, and we're maybe a little worried about the Tyrone Tracy's team, although we don't want to be completely out. Is that a fair assessment?
Yep. Yeah, if he's on the waiver wire, go pick him up. It's worth a shot then. That's what I've been going about it.
All right. The Broncos, we're excited about Estime's path there. We're, I think, above consensus on the situation there for him. We both like McLaughlin. We both like Watson, and could foresee a future in which Estime is Javonte, a.k.a. is Ingram, and Watson is McLaughlin, a.k.a. is Kamara.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%.
And Ravens, obviously Henry's going to get, the attention if you're a contender. We like Keaton Mitchell. We like Ali. And I think we see a path where Ali can overtake Mitchell, so we don't want to be out on him, but we like Mitchell enough where we know that it's possible he still has the job and Ali is, on a practice squad on somebody else's team next year.
Yeah, and most of that for me is because Keaton Mitchell was undrafted. They actually spent some capital on Ali, so I think making that switch would be a little bit easier because of that.
And with the Chargers, I mean, it's kind of, pretty simple. Roll the dice on Vidal. There's almost no reason not to, all things considered.
Yeah, I'm hoping Dobbins is Dobbins, and that even then he's still third one up, and injuries happen. Dobbins' history, they probably won't want to run him too much. So I think Vidal should make a pretty good immediate impact.
Yeah, I feel bad for Dobbins with those major injuries so early in his
Brutal.
career.
Yep.
Jamie saying yes, it's a shorter show tonight. Absolutely. Maybe I don't know. Like we didn't get off the rails. These Google slides kept us.
Yeah.
maybe we should do it more often and not bore people. I don't know what that. All right. All right, so time to land the plane on tonight's episode. We had some fun with this for sure. Please subscribe, rate, and review if you're listening on the Going for Two live audio feed. If you are listening or watching, on the videos, do the old algorithm stuff, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Please make sure you go to goingfor2.com. We got articles and stuff about all kinds of fantasy. We got rankings. We got ADP. Bottom right of the website, we've got the little purple thing for the Discord. Hop in the Discord. Lots of channels, totally free. No chuckleheads. Get advice. Have conversations. Our show has a channel, which we should be posting on more. Right, etc., etc. Of course, Going for Two has a show for you just about every day or night of the week here on the YouTube channel. Time for plugs. Josh, where can people find you and your work?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Rotonaut. It's ROTONAUT if you're on audio. Yeah, I've been tweeting. Once I do finish my rookie drafts, I'm going to do like a thread of all my different rookie drafts, thought processes, and what shares I have, just so I can let people know that I'm actually backing up what I'm saying and going after these guys, even if I had them ranked 20 spots ahead of consensus. Yeah. You can find all that on Twitter. I just actually am starting. I'm like 70% done with my rankings, implementing all the rookies in. I've got them in tiers I want them to be, but I need to go through and fine tune them a little bit. You can find that at goingfor2.com.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at ffjunkie_. Also, goingfor2.com for rankings and articles. Midweek audio only show Dynasty Fever with Jesse from DWZ at Dynasty Fever Pod. And my first Fantasy Pros article should be coming out soon. My due date is in a few days, so the urgency dopamine is pushing me further, and I got some momentum today, and yeah, so it's going to be about value picks in the rookie drafts, which is kind of connected to what we were talking about tonight. You may see some of the names that we talked about tonight in that article. That'll do it for us. That's a wrap. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and